we on? I think we're live. Okay, hey guys, hey everyone, how's it going? This is a totally improvised live stream. Let me just mute myself so I don't hear myself talking 10 seconds ago. Yeah, so this is basically just a out of the blue live stream because unfortunately I won't be able to post any new original music tomorrow morning, as I generally try to once a fortnight. But the reason is because I've been working on some other things, some pretty exciting things. And as you may have seen in the pre-intro thing just there, that was the trailer, the 30-second trailer for Rooftop Renegade's limited time demo, which is currently on. Here, let me see if I can face you a bit better. There you go. This is me in my current studio work from home workspace. So been spending like the last 2 weeks pretty intensely working with Melonhead Games on Rooftop Renegade, which is currently is a limited time demo for 1 week. So if you want to give it a shot, go to Steam and search Rooftop Renegade. It's pretty cool what we've been doing on that. And just from a music standpoint, just to give you a bit of a heads up, the whole thing about the music in there is that it's dynamic, it's player reactive. You'll see what I mean if you play it for yourself. But what we've done with this latest iteration of the game, which has evolved based on player feedback and everything, is that as you play the game and play it well, the music will change. The music will beef up. We've currently got 6 different individual tracks of music across the levels, plus the main menu music and some other stuff in there. But each of those individual tracks go through various stages. Just getting a call from work colleague. Sorry, Trevor, I'll have to talk to you. So it evolves through 4 stages. And for those of you who played the original demo, we originally just had 2 main tracks, let's say, between the 2 worlds, and those tracks would swap between like a good version and a bad version based on how you're doing. So now it's got 4 stages. So yeah, anyway, it's much better to try it out for yourself. But yeah, there's been a lot of restructuring music-wise that's going on with that, and with a lot of the sound design as well. We're using Fmod for that project, which has been an absolute godsend when it comes to testing and doing small changes and doing simulations of playthroughs, so I can change volume and change all these effects while the game is being played and all this cool stuff. So shout out to the guys over at Fmod for creating some really cool tools there. But yeah, so if you've got any questions about Rooftop, or you want to know anything about what's been happening there, either from the audio front, I can answer those, or we may have some of the other guys in the chat. We'll see. I think we've got Alex here, who is the artist, and he did a lot of the UI and a lot of the cool visual stuff that you see in Rooftop. So shout out to Alex here in the chat. So feel free to ask questions and stuff like that. Like I said, today's pretty improvised, so I figured I'd say a little bit about that. Apart from that, what else has been going on? If you have seen some of the recent other videos that I put up, was doing some music for the game Ballistic NG, which is a futuristic racing game, much like if you ever played F-Zero X, F-Zero GX, or your Wipeout series. It's very, very inspired by those. Now, so this that one's not a paid project. It's not a client that I'm working for. It's actually a game that this team, Neognosis, I think you pronounce it, Neognosis. They've put it out on Steam, and it's a great game, but it's got an excellent modding community, and they've built the game so you can mod it and push it as far as you want. So I ended up joining their Discord and got a feel for it and decided to eventually start making just music for some of the tracks in there. So if you're into your futuristic racing stuff, if you like drum and bass or electro, go check out some of the other videos that I got up, and you can download all that music for free just because, you know, the whole thing's free. So go for it. Live your best life. So yeah, I'm going to hang out. Feel free to chat in the chat and I'll be checking that. But otherwise, this is something else that I've been doing at the moment. You might be able to see over here, we've got Phase Plant. I've got my trial with 9 days remaining. And we're running Ableton Live today. So I'm just going to mess around because, so this is a VST, a synth plugin that does many, many great things. However, I'm brand new to it. So I actually started using it for the very first time last night. So this is by no means a tutorial. And if any of you have used Phase Plant before, I'm sure you will know some of the stuff better than I do. Generally, when I'm making music or sounds, I haven't in the past liked doing things from a synth basis. But because I personally like organic sounds and then I try and make them sound synth-like or things like that. It's just a personal taste thing. Having said that, you know, I've seen Phase Plant around as a very decent competitor to some other big wavetable synths such as Serum, if you've seen it, or now Vital is out, which is blowing everyone's mind because it's got some great free versions and stuff like that. But Phase Plant I've seen recommended, and the more I saw it, the more it kind of looked pretty damn cool. It's got a very modular style, so you can kind of plug anything into anything, and you can make anything control anything, more or less. So I'm just going to have a play here and keep an eye on the chat at the same time. So this is a sound that I started making last night just to start learning how to make the thing. So I've got my little, like, you might be able to see, you got my little Novation mini keyboard here. So the pure sound itself is this plucky thing. And if we just, I'll just show you quickly. If we take off. So originally you've got your analog sine wave, which is already not a pure sine wave because we've got something's controlling. Oh, yeah, that's right. We've got unison. This will get a bit technical for people who aren't into this, but you know, see and listen to what sounds cool. So, so unison's on. So it's pretty much a sine wave. We've got the sync is out a little bit, and it's being controlled by our envelope here, which is why it's buzzing and it's not just purely this. There you go. There's our sine wave. Beautiful. Which is interesting because it's not just a sine wave. Even in here, it already just sounds good. Don't know what Phase Plant does, but yeah. So you can hear I've got unison on, detuned it a bit. So we've got 8 separate voices, 8 copies, 8. I don't know why I held up 4 fingers, but you know, 8 8 separate sine waves here, each slightly tuned and each with a bit of spread to give it that kind of wider sound. And then I added, obviously, I can just say I added this and then I added this and I added this. It was never that clean. It was lots and lots of messing around, reordering things. So yeah. So got this cool dispersed square wavetable synth. Which just add them together. Some noise in there. Sounds like your old 8-bit drum sounds from, or 16-bit drum sounds from your Game Boys and your SNES consoles. Got another wavetable in here. Each of them kind of sound nice on their own, very retro. But what's really giving it that percussive sound is this filter. So that's just on the wavetable at the moment. So that filter is connected to our velocity. You might be able to see down here. Velocity being how hard you hit a note. On this keyboard, it's pretty much how fast you press it. On a real piano, your velocity is how hard you hit it. So basically, the harder or the faster I hit this note, the higher this cutoff will be, meaning it'll let through more of the higher frequencies. And that can be cool to create a kind of like a percussive sound or something slightly more organic sounding, because if you imagine you've got like a snare drum and you hit it softly, you kind of have this kind of mellow sound. But if you smack it really hard, it's this very aggressive, high-pitched is almost the wrong word, but it has a lot of high frequencies in there. Very aggressive, bright sounding sound. So yeah, but we put them all together and we get this cool sort of wide pluck, kind of popcorn, modern popcorn sound, for those of you who remember that Popcorn song, which was, I think, one of the first big electronic songs ever made, actually. Does that 3D sound wave display help? Alex, are you talking about the wavetables here? So, yeah, answer when you hear this. So I don't know if you're talking about... so wavetable synthesis is basically where... Yeah, let's see if I can explain this. You kind of... The wavetable is a modern format which makes it really easy to create evolving sounds. So if I just turn everything off except for... Actually, you know, let's use this wavetable. And turn off the filter. So this is... Oh, and then I gotta turn off my modulation here, because that's ruining what I'm about to say. Okay, cool. So I'm holding down a key, and what you're currently hearing is, I don't know if you can see that with the white line in there, or at least like this big display here. You can see what you're hearing is that wave shape being played. Now, if I move this frame knob, what it's going to do is move this wave shape through this kind of... It's essentially a 3D topology. I don't know what the proper word is, but you'll see it actually changes shape. We're not hearing much difference there. Why is that? It could be... I'll just turn that off and I'll put in another wavetable. That might be easier to hear. So just gonna put that there. Yeah, cool. All right, this is a really good one. So this is the default wavetable here. What you're currently hearing, this is the C key on the piano playing. This is just a sine wave here, which is that's very smooth sounding wave. Now you can see if I move this frame, the line goes through that 3D shape and it gradually changes shape to here where it's more triangular. We would call that a saw wave. And then it turns to a square and then a pulse wave. And so if we listen to... I'll hold down the key and I'll kind of slowly move through it. You can hear the sound changing between all these different kind of wave shapes in the wave table. Yeah, so sine wave, saw wave, square wave, pulse. The pulse, you can hear it sounds very much like your old school video games. Yeah, I wish I could just like play like an old song on here. Nah, I got nothing off the top of my head, but yeah. So if we get rid of that, that's what these wavetables are. And what I'm doing is doing something called modulation, which is basically where you can see this little knob. If I turn that up, and it says envelope 25% here. What it's doing is, again, very technical, but yeah, hopefully the visuals help a bit. Every time an envelope is basically, imagine like a water valve letting through water, and it's either open or it's closed. It's letting through a lot of water or no water or halfway in between. Synthesizers actually work very much the same way because they're all about letting electricity through, more or less. And then that electricity creates the sound. So an envelope is basically, it starts when I'm not pressing anything. This first dot is 0. And then it goes straight upwards, which basically means you're moving that valve from off to fully on straight away. So the water goes from nothing to like coming straight through. And as you can imagine, that's a very forceful thing. So in a synth world, it creates a very sharp sound. Whereas if I was to move this dot, which is called the attack of a sound, this is akin to slowly turning on the valve. Again, it's going to make a liar of me, isn't it? Oh, that's because, I'm turning the wrong envelope here. This one up here is the one that actually is like the sound. So here you go. So as you can hear, that's very sharp. This comes on quite slowly. Yeah. So anyway, this envelope down here isn't controlling the output sound, but what it's doing is it's kind of like another controller, which I then have linked to this. So every time I press a key, it's moving the frame up and then back down through this wavetable. And so much of like synthesis, and especially modern synthesis for synthesizers and a lot of electronic music, is about creating these multiple linked transformations where everything controls everything and you get these crazy transforming sounds, because people's ears generally like that complexity, and it generally makes things sound a little more organic than just a straight sine wave or saw wave, or anyway. So this is my sound. I'm just going to open it again because I made a few changes. No, actually, let's look at this other one I made. So here you go. So this is more or less the same, but we're actually using a sample here, which is a sample I got off Splice, which is a great sample subscription store. And then I've added a few things, and then we're putting it through the effects chains here. And this is actually a good demonstration of showing you how Faceplant actually has some pretty crazy effects chains you can put on stuff. Because you can split it into multiple lanes, multiple different streams separately. So lane 1, 2, and 3. And then you can either send them to each other or send them straight to your master bus, which basically is what comes out of your headphones or speakers. So this is the original sound. And then you can hear just through lane 1, I've got some subtle distortion. Let's turn all this off. So the distortion is just giving it a bit more oomph. It's just making it a little bit richer, a little more bright sounding, I think is the term people keep saying. So now Haas, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Haas is you'll be able to hear this if you've got headphones on. It may be a bit harder if you're using speakers. But what Haas is actually this. It comes from the Haas effect, I think they call it, which is basically, so when you have stereo sounds, and you can either hear them coming out of your left or your right or somewhere in between. Generally, that's using something called panning, which is basically where it just turns down the volume in one and turns it up in the other. And so if something's panned completely to your right, you will hear it in your right headphone, not your left. And generally, we've always felt, that means it's coming out from my right side. The problem is, in real life, that's not how sound works, because it's not like one of our ears shuts off and we suddenly don't hear anything from the other side. What actually happens is, let's say I'm walking down the street and there's a balloon that pops over on my right side, down there. The sound comes, and it's a very minute difference time-wise, but it changes things. The sound comes, and I'll hear that pop in my right ear first, and then, milliseconds later, it'll reach my left ear. And not only is there going to be that timing difference, so right first, then left, but because my left ear is pointing the other way, and my body's in the way, it may do things like muffle the sound a little bit as well. And so by having these slight variations between our two ears, right is clear and then left is afterwards, but slightly muffled. That's how our brain works out where things are in a 3D space around us. And so, as we were saying, generally people have just done panning, which is volume up, volume down, but that's not actually how our brain works. Now, the Haas effect is basically taking all this psychoacoustics into consideration. And so what it's doing, I'll see if I can show you here. If we turn it off. I think the sound itself already has a little bit of panning on it, but the Haas, you might be able to hear as I turn it up in your headphones. It might sound like it's got a wider sound, meaning it's further left and right. And that's just because it's taking this Haas effect, this delay between the ears, into account and reproducing it and everything. So that's really cool if you're doing virtual reality media, for example, virtual reality games, or virtual reality film, or even if you're just doing stereo music or soundscapes that you want to have a more like real world sound. The only problem with it is, from what I've read and heard, sometimes if you're not using headphones, it's either less obvious, or it can actually create some other issues. Which is why you often get some video games such as Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice is a great example of this, using binaural audio, where they strongly recommend you use headphones, because often they're taking these kind of tricks into account, and they want you to experience things in its most immersive. So that's the Haas effect. And then we've got some reverb after that, which helps things echo. So that's our lane one. It's funny, I wasn't even intending to explain what's going on here. I was just going to mess around, and you guys could watch if you want. But if you find it interesting, then I'm happy to talk about this stuff. So lane 2 has something called Snap Heap in it, which, as far as I can tell from using this last night, it's like its own little subset of effects that pop out here. And so there's some really cool things in here. Let me just turn this off. So Granulator is a preset that came with the Faceplant demo. And if I hold down a key, then you can hear it's kind of got some cool little granular echoes and delays. And then so I've put on some delay with some ping pong just to help it bounce around a bit. Transient shapers. Oh, I love the visuals in this because it's so visual. It helps you to see what's going on as well. This should be making everything more clucky and more crisp. The transient is the very first kind of hit of a sound. Put some gain on it so it can be louder. You can see I'm not actually pressing anything anymore. I've got this feedback set up to, what is it, 99%. So the delay is constantly going back into itself, and this will be going for a while. But that's why then you put it through some more effects. Glitch, Biensa, and then that Haas effect again. There we go. And then we'll turn on lane 1 again. So if I press this, we'll be getting some reverb, and it's just going. And then my lane 2 goes into lane 3, which I have a resonator on. That also then goes through reverb. Yeah, I'll just turn it down a little bit so you can hopefully hear my voice a bit more. And turn myself up. Hello. Yep, cool. All right, that might be a bit better. So the resonator basically, you can see, has a key. And we can do it by sense as well, which is like a portion of a semitone or a tone. So it has a key. I mean, has a note. And that just resonates kind of like, imagine these little bubbly sounds plucking a string or hitting a string. And I can change all sorts of settings on that. But yeah, so I was just messing around with this last night, and it's cool for this kind of weird, bubbly ambience. It sounds really cool in like stereo. I'll just mess around for a bit. Yeah, so that is the current preset that we are making. Is called Infinite Alien Dust Bubbles. Try and think of a better name, because I struggled with that one. So if we just go back to this other sound, we got percussive alpha. Let's take a look at the effects and see some cool stuff we can do with it. So so what I was just doing just then is I'm trying to bind my keyboard to move that macro controller, which is now moving our cutoff, so I can make it do cool transformations just by sliding my finger here. Let's make it angrier. And as you can see, this actually started with that pluck sound we were doing just before. So, yeah, synthesis is pretty powerful. New Zelda shrine music. Yeah, I don't think they've used much distortion, but you know, Breath of the Wild took a very different approach to music to all the previous games. So who knows? Maybe Breath of the Wild 2, some electric guitars, some distorted synths in there. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. I do not even know what this one does, the Faturator. So what I'm going to do is get something called a LFO, which is a oscillating wave. It's a sine wave at the moment, just goes up and down. LFOs you may have heard of in dubstep. Basically what they're used for is for controlling other things. So you see this little thingamajig tic-tac looking thing going up and down, basically going between 1 and -1. We're going to attach that to something else, and what we're going to do is attach it to our reverb. So you can see our reverb mix is going up and down. So if I just hold down something now, you might be able to hear, I'm just going to turn down that Faturator. What you might be able to hear is that our echoey reverb is coming in and out. Now, so let's slow that down a bit. Let's sync it to, no, let's go 3. So 1 hertz, that's once per second. Let's half that. you can hear that. It's just some more modulation, some more complexity. But we can attach this to many things. So let's attach it to our delay as well. So as you can hear, people recommend this faceplant for sound design, and you can see it's pretty damn powerful. And it's kind of the more things you daisy chain to each other, the just crazier it gets. In my expert opinion of one day using it. Alright, so I've just recorded something so we can focus on the sound design, but let's get some little drums in there too. Alex, you said Zelda Shrine, so these bongos are on you. Got my little drum pad here. Why did that not record? Wait a second. Something tells me live does something. Capture MIDI. Yes. Good on you, live. When you don't record something properly, it actually still does record. So. Yes, the Fire Temple. And hopefully this one doesn't get banned in the first version. It wasn't Koji Kondo's fault it got banned. He got those chants from a sample pack and probably didn't realize where they were from. For those who don't know what I'm referring to, in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Fire Temple had a original song in version 1.0 of the game cartridge that got released worldwide. And the Fire Temple had this cool theme, but it used samples of Islamic chants, or at least what sounds like Islamic chants. Samples being sound recordings. Now that in itself isn't too bad because it has been, those samples have actually been used in other games, and you can find other games that were passed with these sounds. But the problem was in the Fire Temple, visually as well, they used a sickle moon and like the crescent moon and the star, which is also an Islamic symbol, or at least is very much like an Islamic symbol. And so together it made Nintendo seem a little insensitive, considering this temple is a dungeon in which you go in to save these Goron rock people from this crazy fire dragon. And yeah, so they had to change it for version 1.1, which no longer has those Islamic chants. And actually they did, Koji Kondo and his sound team did a good job replacing those sounds, because in my opinion the new version is even more creepy and even more ambient. But also, just for some context, when you do something like that in games, these days, you can just send out a patch. I mean, it's bad, but you can just send out a patch and everyone downloads the patch. Back then, these are Nintendo 64 cartridges, and they didn't want to recall all of them. So, yeah, there's still versions out there with this version 1.0 Islamic chant music. So, yeah. Some trivia for you. But no, Alex, we won't be doing that today. So I think what we're going to do, what's the time? Yeah, well, we've been going for a while. That's all right. I want to make a new sound that will fit in a bit more with these drums. So let's just have a play and see what we can come up with. Yeah. Something a bit more fitting. 1 sec, guys. I've got to wrap this up in a sec, so I'm just going to add one more. Oh, I say one more. Let's add a couple more things. Omnisphere, the beast. We'll bring that back in a sec. First, let's just add another personal favorite, some glitch to this to mess things up. Listen to this. I like using it to add some kind of percussive, glitchy percussive sort of stuff. There's one sound in here that's just like sounds terrible. Oh, it's that one. Reverser. Kalimbas are always good. Got to remember to keep it on the screen so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Let's just throw a texture in there. Omnisphere has a lot of really, really cool sounds in it. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today, folks. Unfortunately, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, like I said, no video tomorrow, but from next week when I can talk again, hopefully. You Ableton. From next week, I'll be hopefully back on making music for either Ballistic NG or the new album, which I haven't talked about. You may have seen a drum and bass song I put up a little while ago called Race Through the Shimmering Deep with some new album art there, which means I am working on a new album. And hoping to upload those tracks as they get done. So yeah, keep an ear out for that. Keep an ear out for that. Good grammar is good. And yeah, And if you haven't had a chance to check out Rooftop Renegade, as I'm sure you've seen me posting all about, it's worth, look, it's free, it's pretty quick to get into. Otherwise, you can check out some streams of people doing it. Game on Oz, the guys and girls over there, the people over there, streamed that back on Wednesday night, and that was awesome to see them doing that. And yeah, a few other people have been playing it around, so which is really, really nice to see. Actually, it's kind of rewarding after all the work you put in to see other people playing it, and even better, people enjoying it. So yeah, but yeah, that's on Steam right now, up until the 9th. In Australia here, it might be the 10th, depending on time zones. But yeah, check that out. Anyway, thanks for coming to hang and talking. And I will see you guys next time. Have a great week.